There's a slew of great games hitting in 2020 that have been announced over the last year. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the top 25 upcoming games announced in 2019. Just a quick disclaimer, we're not including Cyberpunk 2077, Doom Eternal, Dreams, Dying Light 2, Final Fantasy VII's Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Halo Infinite, Last of Us Part 2, Nioh 2, Marvel's Avengers, Minecraft Dungeons, Wasteland 3, Bayonetta 3, Elder Scrolls 6, or Starfield, because these games were all announced before 2019. Which feels really weird to say because it's 2020 and we haven't seen any of those, but yeah, we've known about them a lot longer. So let's get going. Starting off at number 25 is Plan 8, which is a massively multiplayer online shooter from Pearl Abyss, the creators of Black Desert Online, which they are describing as an exosuit shooter. Now, we don't have a ton of info, but we did see some Titanfall-style wall running and maybe some other mechanics. And we really don't know exactly what Pearl Abyss means by MMO here, but it does have a very good, gritty look to it, and I think Pearl Abyss has earned enough goodwill that Plan 8 deserves our attention. Coming in at number 24 is Medal of Honor Above and Beyond. It has been a long time since we've seen a Medal of Honor game. 2012, I think, was the last one. I think EA shelved it basically because they had lost a bit of faith in the franchise, and to be frank, they ended up acquiring a developer in Respawn that has basically turned itself into one of the premier developers today. So it makes sense they would hand over Medal of Honor to them, but the most intriguing part of the project is that it is an Oculus VR exclusive. We'll see exactly what that means as we get closer to release, but from what we've seen, which is admittedly not much, Medal of Honor Above and Beyond does look intriguing. Moving on to 23, it's Diablo IV, with 7 years between the announcement of this game and the previous release, Diablo III of course. Like Diablo Immortal, the, well, mobile release to keep the bad-mouthing at a minimum. We're excited to hear that a new engine is being developed for the game, and that the PC and console release will be simultaneous. We are not sure when this is coming. It's probably not going to be 2020, but it is upcoming. Diablo 4 is, of course, high priority, so we will definitely talk about it more as we learn more. So coming in at 22 is Overwatch 2, which seems to buck a lot of the norms that we would see in a sequel in a lot of the features that they've announced for this game being implemented in the original game, apparently because they're so confident in the content they're adding in Overwatch 2. Now, the most intriguing thing to me, I would say, is the story mode that they're adding. I've always wondered why there isn't a story mode in Overwatch on account they've spent so much time creating what are frankly very memorable characters with a lot of interesting story beats. It seems like a smart move to take advantage of that, and I'm excited to play it, along with all of the new multiplayer mayhem in Overwatch 2. At 21 is Outriders, which is described by its developers, People Can Fly, as a dark, modern shooter. And if you're aware of who they are, they created Bulletstorm as well as Gears of War Judgment. Now, it does look like it's probably going to share a lot of its DNA with Gears of War. However, it also looks like it has a fairly different story. It's 3-player co-op, and it looks very apocalyptic from the trailer. However, for the most part, what we really have is a basic first look, a trailer, and some assumptions that I and many others have made at this point. Outriders is hitting PC, PS4, and Xbox One in the summer. Coming in at number 20 is one you won't have to be waiting a lot longer for. It's Animal Crossing New Horizons, which is of course a massively requested sequel to the incredibly popular Life Simulator, and something the Switch has been sorely in need of since its announcement. People love Animal Crossing. Now, the one thing I am a little bit wary of is that they have added in-game currency, which is a little bit of a tug on the collar, but at the same time, I can't imagine it's going to be too intrusive. It's a Switch game, not a mobile game. Animal Crossing New Horizons hits Switch March 20th. At number 19 is Kerbal Space Program 2, the developers of the sequel replacing the originals, Star Theory, previously known as Uber Entertainment. Now, probably the biggest piece of information I'm interested in is that it looks as though they're trying to ambitiously build on what was done in the original, which for a developer change I think is good. I think if they just release the same game again, it would kind of be really annoying to see another developer do that, possibly not as good. But they've expanded the building and apparently are expanding the multiplayer, which is cool. We probably won't be seeing this game in 2020, but that doesn't mean I want to wait. At number 18 is Sons of the Forest, a sequel to The Forest. In a lot of ways, I think a very interesting progression of the stuff that we saw in the game, at least from what I've seen in the trailer. Where the original was much more of a survival game, this one looks a little bit more like it's going to be hunting oriented. The monsters are also a little bit more mutated than the ones we saw in the original, but this one looks a lot more cinematic, and therefore I'm assuming maybe a bit more narrative focused. We'll see. I'm excited to play Sons of the Forest, but we have no idea when it's coming out. At number 17 is Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, and wow, this looks just right off amazing. When we saw the announcement trailer and we found out that was like game engine footage, we're just like, wow. Xbox Series X looks like it's probably gonna be nice. But more importantly, it looks like a pretty big expansion on the original Hellblade. Senua looks to be raising some sort of an army, and it looks about 400 times more bonkers than the first, which is great because the first is amazing. This is one of those games that I couldn't put down until I was done with, and I cannot wait for a sequel. At number 16 is Godfall, which comes to us from the developers of Borderlands. Gearbox is calling this one a fantasy looter slasher, which is essentially telling us that we should expect looter shooter stuff, but primarily with melee attacks. At least that's what I've gathered from it. Now, it's important to note that this could be very good or very bad. We don't know yet. But our graphics, our theme, our general look, I think, is pretty cool so far. I'll be a little more excited when I find out exactly how much story is involved. But considering that Borderlands has kind of perfected the balance, I expect Gearbox will probably handle Godfall pretty well. At 15 is The Wolf Among Us 2, a game that I think nobody thought was going to happen on account of what happened with Telltale Games, but fortunately they've been revived by a company by the name of LCG Entertainment, which has partnered the brand Telltale with Ad Hoc Studio, which was founded by Telltale Games employees that did not want to stop making games, and they got to continue what is a lauded but underappreciated series from the Telltale canon. There is no launch date, but hey, it's really cool that it's coming. At 14 is No More Heroes 3, a hack-and-slash action-adventure, which will be landing on the Nintendo Switch sometime this year. This is a series that is very odd, silly, over-the-top. It will be taking place 9 years after No More Heroes 2, 2 years after Travis Strikes Again, which is a spin-off game, but still canon. Basically, the tone of these games is kind of like Saints Row, but for the Marvel Cinematic Universe in some ways. And I'm looking forward to the third mainline entry in the franchise. At 13 is Gods and Monsters, a very, very cool looking game that looks to build on some of the achievements of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, while bringing the experience of a lot of the creators of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. If you can imagine Breath of the Wild but with Greek gods and stuff, there you go. When it was originally announced, some people didn't love that it looked so much like Breath of the Wild, but I actually think it's great. If Breath of the Wild ushers in a new visual era of games, I'm totally there. And I'm interested to see both how this is similar to and how it is different from Breath of the Wild. Either way, Gods and Monsters looks absolutely wonderful, and we'll be playing it on February 25th. At 12 is Psychonauts 2, which is bringing us something super interesting in that Microsoft bought Double Fine, but they're going multi-platform with this title, probably because they know that Psychonauts, the original, was very much a multi-platform title that banked its success very much on having a wide fan base. Psychonauts, the original, is a platform game. Double Fine knows what they're doing as far as this goes. People loved the original. I can't wait to play the sequel, and I want to know where the story goes. At 11 is Watch Dogs Legion, which I would say is a really intriguing follow-up to Watch Dogs 2, which was a really intriguing follow-up to the first game, which was not really that intriguing when compared to its actual original idea. This series has had the benefit of building itself on top of framework that could have been great, with the second actually kind of delivering on the promises of the first. Watch Dogs Legion looks to build way more, making Britain into a police state, using Brexit as its own hypothetical future. Honestly, it's super interesting, and we'll see just how alternate the future actually is when Watch Dogs Legion hits. At number 10 is Ghostwire Tokyo, which we still don't really understand. It's a paranormal game set in Tokyo, obviously. It's being called an action-adventure game, and its announcement spawned a meme in the form of the creative director, Ikumi Nakamura. Her enthusiasm for the game was basically infectious. Everyone loved it, although she has left the company since then. And honestly, the game looks super weird. Weird in a good way, of course. It kind of looks like the supernatural version of Resident Evil, and that's something that I'm here for. We'll see exactly what that pans out to mean, hopefully soon. Ghostwire Tokyo seems like it's going to be pretty great. Number 9 is Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which is a retelling of Goku's story, of course. It will, however, be expanded upon and made into an open-world action RPG. I'm there for that. And even has a new character in it from Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball. We are not far away from release, and honestly, it looks pretty good, so we'll probably be seeing everything very soon. We'll definitely be talking about this around its release, January 17th. At number 8 is Rainbow Six Quarantine, a horror spin-off of Rainbow Six Siege. It's a 3-player co-op tactical shooter and has the Rainbow Operators facing off against a mutated alien parasite several years into the future, although I'm guessing it's probably not necessarily a canonical game. It does seem to have a pretty good atmosphere, and obviously Rainbow Six is good tactical stuff. Sci-fi horror is my jam. Let's see more of this. Rainbow Six Quarantine, out sometime this year. Number 7 is Microsoft Flight Simulator, which looks to bring a level of visual realism to the game that gave you an extremely realistic version of piloting a plane. I think that's extremely cool. All the screenshots and video we've seen of this game looks absolutely beautiful, and that's kind of really the appeal. Assuming that the actual piloting is as accurate as ever, Microsoft Flight Simulator will be coming to Xbox One and Windows 10 sometime this year. At 6 is Deathloop, a game where 2 very incredibly skilled assassins are fighting each other in a loop where no matter how many times they kill each other, they continue to fight. What we've seen, it looks as though there are powers that each of them have, from teleporting to telekinesis, but we don't know to what extent they involve themselves in gameplay. In fact, we don't really know a lot about the gameplay at all, other than the concept is friggin' great. The art is friggin' great. And hey, I'm there for that. Some mystery is actually not the worst thing in the world, and it's something to look forward to. I mean, Arcane Studios has brought us some of the best games of all time, the Dishonored games, and I'm there for Deathloop. And at 5, it's Baldurs Gate 3, which is being built by Larian Studios, the creators of Divinity Original Sin, which, let's be clear, is probably the best possible outcome. Like, let's be clear, Divinity Original Sin is a great game along those lines, and I am very much excited for what those developers do with the franchise. Given we really only have a trailer and a release date of quote-unquote when it's ready, I think it's going to be a while before we learn a lot more, but I'm excited for Baldur's Gate 3. Coming in at number 4, it's HalfLife Alex, which is a prequel to Half-Life 2, and it is not Half-Life 3. Now, this was initially a bit disappointing for people, but I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm tentatively optimistic about this game. It's a VR game, it's not exclusive to any VR headset, which is nice, and it looks like it's attempting to make a full-blown real game on VR that gives us the potential of what a VR FPS actually is like. Plus, we'll spend more time with Alex, and that's not bad. Alex is a great character. Half-Life Alex is coming in March. At number 3 is the Resident Evil 3 remake, which Resident Evil 3 is of course a very interesting game. Some of it takes place before Resident Evil 2, some of it immediately after. That's not typically how you do that sort of thing, but Resident Evil 3 is a beloved game, and with good reason. To see it getting the same kind of treatment that Resident Evil 2 is getting has me extremely excited. I loved the story in all 3 of the original Resident Evil games, and frankly Resident Evil 3 absolutely deserves this. It's a great game. I'm really looking forward to the reimagining. At number 2, it's Elden Ring, the collaboration between From Software's Hidetaka Miyazaki and George R.R. Martin of Game of Thrones fame. George R.R. Martin has created all of the lore and world building, while the story and situations are built by Miyazaki. It is supposedly going to kind of be the open world Dark Souls. Dark Souls being semi-open world games with interconnected worlds, this diving headfirst into the actual full-blown open world. I think that it's going to be cool, and I'm glad that they're doing the open world kind of as a test bed in a non-Dark Souls game first. Elden Ring is rumored to be coming out in the summer of this year, although we have nothing official pointing towards that. Fingers are crossed though. Finally, at number 1 is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, which, hey, guess what? Looks like the story's not over. Honestly, Breath of the Wild 2 looks like the third act if Breath of the Wild was Act 1 and Act 2. And that has me very excited because, frankly, Breath of the Wild feels like a complete story. However, we now know that the Malice maybe wasn't Ganon, or maybe was. I don't really know exactly how to classify it, we don't know yet. But actual Ganon is underneath the Hyrule Castle, and stuff is about to go down. I'm extremely excited for Breath of the Wild 2. We, however, do not have a release date for it, so we are going to be waiting a while probably. Couple of quick bonus games for you. First is Ghost Runner, which is being billed as kind of a mix between Titanfall and Dishonored. It takes place in a cyberpunk world and gives you some really cool sword combat. Crossfire X, which is a first-person shooter, which takes place in a global conflict between two very large private military corporations. Next is Path of Exile 2, which is not actually a sequel, it's an expansion, but it's a sequel's worth of content that overhauls the original game, which is, in my opinion, the best possible way to go about it. And last, but definitely not least, the remake of Destroy All Humans, which retains all of the original game's dialogue, but is totally rebuilt from the ground up otherwise. In every way, that's the best possible situation with that. That's it for today. What are you most looking forward to? Leave us a comment, let us know what you think, and if you enjoyed this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and don't forget to enable all notifications. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconTheHero. We'll see you next time, right here on gameranx.